loves, it's Shaaba. Welcome back to another Tuesday, another week, another video. So I watched a show last month and I really wanted to talk about it. It was called Indian Matchmaking on Netflix, and it's a documentary, I use the term documentary very lightly, you'll see why in a second, who follows someone called Seema, who is a matchmaker from India. She travels all around the world to basically set up her Indian clients with love. On one hand, I loved the show. There was so much drama. Some of the people were so nice. I was so invested. But on the other hand, it is super problematic. Not just the show, but the wider concept of arranged marriages. And so I wanted to chat. So firstly, what do we think about the concept of arranged marriages as a whole? I'm still in two minds. I'm way more open about it now than I was before watching the show, but I read that 90% of people in India have an arranged marriage. 90%. And even outside of India, it's very common in Asian culture, South Asian culture, my culture. If I think about my family, so many of them have been in arranged marriages. I swear to God, sometimes my family did say it as a joke. But even as kids, like, I was lined up for arranged marriages. There were people that were sort of picked out from when I was a toddler to be like, they'll make a really good husband for Shaaba. That'll be a really good match for this person. Like, it's a really weird concept to think that you look at kids and like already pair them up. Interestingly though, the very first thing that I noticed about the show Indian Matchmaking is they said that there is no such thing as an arranged marriage. There is a marriage and there is a love marriage. The fact that arranged marriages are the ones that are so the norm that they're just marriages, and love marriages are the ones that are abnormal and therefore have to be given a special term. It's so different to what we see here in Western life. Yeah, and honestly, whenever I used to hear the term arranged marriage, I'd be like, hate it. What on earth are you doing? That's so backwards minded. Now, after watching the show, I'm more open to it because the show had a positive portrayal of arranged marriages. I'm trying to use my words really carefully because it's positive, but I don't think we can say it's like reliable or reflective of the norm. Does that make sense? Shaaba pre-Indian Matchmaking show, whenever I thought of arranged marriages, the only thing that came to mind were people who were very young, who had no concept of love or dating, and who saw their groom or bride for the very first time at the end of the aisle as they were getting married. Or if you're in Muslim culture, after you get married, because Muslim marriages don't actually happen with you in the same room. Quite often you're not in the same place, you're in two separate rooms. So brides and grooms didn't actually see each other until after they became husband and wife. The idea of that arranged marriage, even now, does not sit well with me at all. I cannot imagine binding yourself in so many ways to someone when you don't even know what they're like, when you haven't even seen their faces in some cases. But in the show Indian Matchmaking, it was a more modern take on arranged marriages. The matchmaker actually met people who were willing to go through this process willingly. It wasn't families that were forcing them to go through it. For some people, families definitely had, in my opinion, more of a say than they should have done, but they wanted to go and see this matchmaker. They went on dates. It wasn't just, here, this person's good for this person, go get married, have a good life, figure it out afterwards. This lady, the matchmaker, she was a human Tinder. She was a human Bumble. She just walked around with a little biodata sheets, which were just fancy profiles. It was just a different way of dating. I dig that. I think that's really cool. And I think if families get involved, that's really not a bad thing. Not to make any final decisions, but to be like, yeah, I like this guy or girl or person. This modern day view of arranged marriage is awesome. Never thought that would come out of my mouth, but yay, arranged marriages. Something else that the show did that I really loved was at the beginning of each episode was introduced by an old couple, like real couples from real life, who had clearly been married for a while, talking about their experiences of being in that relationship when they had an arranged marriage. And it was all so beautiful to watch, and they were all so happy and in love. And I definitely came away being like, yes, arranged marriage, yes, good, wow, did a complete 180 on that. But then I looked into the show and into arranged marriages sort of in real life, not just on Indian Matchmaking on Netflix. And unfortunately, what I found was that whilst this does exist, it's not everybody's experience. This more modern way is what the wealthier people and more progressive minded people tend to go through. It's not the majority of arranged marriage situations. Most of the arranged marriage situations are still quite backwards in mentality. Families are doing it, and quite often the people getting married don't have any say. And so that's really sad to hear. This isn't a review of the show, it's just how I came to think about arranged marriages and look into it further. But if we are reviewing the show, I think it's a little bit of a shame that they didn't sort of highlight that. It wasn't really a documentary, that's what I mean. It was more like a drama entertainment series that followed this lady and these specific cases. Not all arranged marriages are done this way. In fact, this is quite unusual. But hey, some progressive people are doing it this way, and we're looking into these stories. Ba-ding! You know, love should never be a privilege. You should be able to choose who you're with regardless of your social class or class status or whatever you want to label it. And as adorable as those little old couples were at the beginning of each episode who truly made my heart smile, it definitely was a very one-sided lens. Like, I don't know about you, but in my experience, I've seen a lot of arranged marriages not work out. Many do not. And I would take a hunch. I would take a guess. I really don't think that arranged marriages go very well. Honestly, don't think that there would be any competition. I think love marriages would always be more successful. But the show was a very one-sided view of only these positive stories from these older couples. And so I just think it was a little bit misguiding. And other than that very biased perception, there were a few other themes and issues that are super problematic. The first thing that I picked up on straight away, call me a feminist, was the different portrayal of men and women. It's not necessarily something bad about the show. I'm sure that it's not just the show. What I'm saying is it's bad about the arranged marriage sort of culture in general. But let's be real, the portrayal of men and women is still bad in Western society. I don't know what I was expecting. I'll try not to do spoilers, but there is one man in particular and one woman in particular that I'm thinking of, and both of them were pretty picky about their dates. The woman, she wasn't very likable, but she was just like, I don't think that I need to grow or change anymore, you know? I don't need to change who I am for a partner. The feminist in me is like, yeah, you go girl, because that is true. You don't have to change for anyone. But the other part of me is like, every relationship has to have some level of compromise and flexibility, right? I'm not saying change who you are, but we are not completely compatible with anyone. Accommodating the space, sharing such intimacy with another person is of course going to take some level of compromise and flexibility. And I think that's what Seema, the matchmaker, was portraying, and the shady editing of this show at times was portraying. But they really painted her as like being fickle, and we're just like, oh god, yeah, she's a bloody tricky one, she is. You know, oh, I can't get any matches. And it did take her like 4 or 5 goes, but then like 4 or 5 goes to get someone who you're going to open up to and like speak to. I think that's pretty good going. I wouldn't call that too picky. Meanwhile, there was a man, he had rejected over 100 women based on paper alone, and they were like, oh yeah, he's just unsure. Do you know what I mean? Like, the difference between how they were saying women were like, oh, so how dare she go through 4 or 5 different men to find the person that she's gonna commit to for the rest of her life. But the guy, 100, give him some more, give him some time, he's just unsure. Like, that was a bit ridiculous. Mind you, whilst the show painted him as unsure, his mum was, that's another story. I should also point out that the ages of these people, like, the mum was really pressuring this guy in particular to get married, and he was in his, like, mid-20s, and I was like, chill out. She was like, come on, what is wrong with you? You're my last son and you need to get married. Like, oof, chill, calm down. Whereas for the woman, there was no one in particular pressuring her. She just felt like she wanted to get married. So I guess that's more progressive. Another thing that I found really interesting, do you do fate? Are you into like fate and horoscopes and astrology and all of this? I don't foo-foo it, but I'm not like, yo, I'm so invested. But Indian society rely really heavily on the stars aligning and astrology and compatibility in terms of relationships. And multiple times this matchmaker did her thing, found matches, found people together. She would then go to an astrologer and they would look at these photos of these people and look at their birth dates and be like, yes, they're compatible, or no, they're not compatible. And she was saying that apparently, even when people seem to get on really well, if the stars did not align for them, they were not allowed to get married. Like, that is so unusual to me. Some people, even if the stars didn't align, they were like, you know what, we're having a great time on a date anyway, so let's just progress. I didn't realise that was a thing. It did honestly make me think about the compatibility of me and Jamie, but I've decided not to check for my sins. Actually, I don't know what Jamie is. He's on like the cusp, and I don't want to look at our compatibility because I don't want it to influence my thinking, like, I know we're compatible, so I don't want some horoscope telling me that we're not. Anyway, forgetting about the stars, another issue, actually this one is very damaging, was the way that they categorized people. The terms used for women were specifically words like tall, trim, and fair. So when I was watching this with Jamie, he was just like, can I clarify what she means by fair here? He was thinking, you know, like, just, kind. But no, when the terms fair and clair in Creole are used in Asian culture, it's used in a way that is so horribly colourist. For those who may not know, colorism is like within brown people, for example, there's a real divide and lack of equal treatment between people who are lighter skinned brown and darker skinned brown. And this is in many races, not just in brown people. But the fact that they actually said that on the show, that she's like, yeah, we need to find a nice fair woman for this person, I just found that mind-blowing, that such outdated views and terminology is still being used today. Ugh. The fact that these women are still being put in these ideals, and there's this one specific person as well who was not large, but was told that she would never get married, she'd never find love. Other matchmakers and people were like, you need to lose weight, that's why you haven't found a husband yet, because she wasn't like the stick model. I just ugh. It blows my mind to think that people are still treated in that way, and that is what's considered a success metrics of relationships. What is that? What is that? The particularly picky guy that I was talking about beforehand ended up picking somebody who was very fair-skinned in the end and happened to be a model, funnily enough. And let me tell you, the conversations were so awkward. How could you have turned away 100 women? And this is the person that you're deciding to go forward and marry based on this level of conversation. Do you like dogs? Yeah, I like dogs. Do you like cats? No, I don't like cats. I'm trying so hard not to judge, but I'm really judging. The chemistry was bad. And it just showed, especially to me, that this whole biodata thing was a load of crap. It didn't work. He clearly picked someone based on looks alone. They didn't seem to have that much in common. And yet, funnily enough, these were the only people who progressed to a wedding event by the end of the show. And I was like, hang on, what happened to all of these other couples in the show? Tiny spoiler coming ahead, so I'm sorry, I know I said don't do no spoilers, but I'm gonna spoil it for you. There was no like, did these relationships last? Or, you know, what do these relationships look like 1 month down the line? They didn't do that. I looked into it, of course I did. I stalked all of their social media profiles, I read articles, and literally none of those relationships worked out. None of the matches were successful. That's probably why they didn't report it, but even the ones that to me looked like they had a really great chemistry, they were going on multiple dates, they were together for like months, they didn't last. Even the one that had, I mean, it's good because their chemistry was really bad. The do you like dogs? Yes, I like dogs one. They even called off their wedding before the wedding took place, but after some of the celebrations. So does it work? Does arranged marriages, that process even work? But if we're taking this as our sample, no. It was definitely a good show for the drama. During lockdown, during COVID, for good TV, cool. Apparently, whilst this does exist, it's really not a reflection of the majority of the situation. It's not like a real life documentary in that sense. We have to take it with a pinch of salt. But I do think two really good things have come from the show. The first is that it's brought these conversations to the forefront. Like, arranged marriages is really not something that we speak about a lot in the Western world, and it's something that people in cultures who partake in that just sort of go with the flow for. But the fact that there is a Netflix show that follows it, that brings to light these important issues that people are talking about, even if it is just on social media, if they're like, hey, yeah, we probably shouldn't be calling women fair or using that as our like criteria, right? You know, the show may have displayed things that were pretty damaging, but the fact that it was done on a platform which means we can talk about it and bring it up and hopefully use that as a way to change it by stigmatizing those things is great. And the second thing that I will give credit to the show for is for educating, even if it was educating on just what a small portion of arranged marriages look like. I didn't realise. I'm still all for the love marriage, don't get me wrong. But if people want to get married because they're of a certain age or they just don't want to be alone and they haven't been able to find love successfully in like a natural way, and there's this auntie who's just walking around as like a human Tinder who's very connected with your culture, we shouldn't be judging people for wanting to use that. It seems like a really great resource. Arranged marriages today, maybe not all of them, but as this show portrays, some of them are not just about forcing two people to marry regardless of whether they know each other. It's just a more controlled way of dating. And if I didn't have Jamie, would I go through this process? Yeah, I would probably give it a go. I never thought this would willingly come out of my mouth that I would be open to an arranged marriage. But truly, if I didn't have a partner, if I was struggling to find a partner, if I really wanted a partner, it's something I would do. Every day is a school day. But there you go, that's the video. A mini review of the Indian matchmaking show and my thoughts on arranged marriages. What's your views? Have you taken part in arranged marriage? Would you take part in arranged marriage? If you want to watch a show, feel free to. It's on Netflix. This isn't an ad or a spawn or anything. Just remember to take it lightly. It's not a full true reflection of Indian arranged marriage culture. Alright my loves, if you enjoyed this video, maybe consider giving it a thumbs up, subscribing if you'd like to see more, and I'll see you next week with another video, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Be kind and have a great day.